Venom is directed by Ruben Fleischer, and it tells the story of Eddie Brock / Venom and the origin story of how Eddie met the Venom symbiote and became the character of Venom, the character of Carlton Drake, trying to conduct illegal experiments on humans on the baseline in an effort to cure cancer. But at the same time, he's obviously trying to make a hybrid being by bonding human and symbiote. So obviously now Eddie Brock, teaming up with Venom, is going to try to take them down. So I know that there were a lot of reviews out there that said that this movie wasn't that good. I heard that some other movie also compared this one to Catwoman in 2004. That's pretty low, man. But I'm here to tell you this. Venom is not a bad movie, okay? It's not a bad movie. It's a decent film. At times it does feel like a Michael Bay movie, but in essence, it is a good movie. It's a fun movie to watch. You can watch it with your family. Hell, I took my sister to watch it with me, so it's not a bad movie. It's just that there's nothing special about it. I'm not even going to make the comparison to Infinity War because forget it. Like even Black Panther, it felt very emotional when in certain scenes. There's nothing like that in this film. It's just a nice, cheesy action thriller that just happens to have a superhero or anti-hero in it, and it's just that kind of a movie. It's not really anything to be taken seriously. It's not like Marvel's version of like Spawn or anything like that. It's not Marvel's version of Catwoman. That's definitely for sure. It was entertaining, especially the interactions with Eddie Brock and Venom, which are both played and voiced respectively by Tom Hardy. I think he is probably the best thing about this movie. The fact that he decided to take it upon himself to voice the character of Venom and act as Eddie Brock. That's pretty crazy. That takes some dedication. So he must really like the role of Venom. This movie does take inspiration from the comic storylines Venom, Lethal Protector, and Planet of the Symbiotes, which is actually a Spider-Man comic. So interestingly, there is no Spider-Man in here, which is another thing that a lot of comic book fans complain about. How can you have a Venom storyline without Spider-Man? And I totally understand your concern. Yeah, the origin story of how Eddie Brock got the Venom symbiote on him was kind of weak, I would say. Even when he gets into Carlton Drake, how Carlton Drake gets the Riot symbiote also was a bit underwhelming. I mean, they tried to kind of make it interesting with Riot, but they just weren't able to do it. So starting off, as I mentioned, Tom Hardy does an amazing job. The performance that he gave for Venom and Eddie Brock, both very distinctive characters, obviously, was great. And Eddie, honestly, I did kind of feel for him because, in the movie, this is not really a big spoiler, because of the interview that he tries to get from Carlton Drake, because Eddie Brock actually in this movie does have his own TV show, and he's trying to interview Carlton Drake, who he finds out is doing all these illegal experimentation on human beings and whatnot. So he then goes and he tries to, as you saw in the trailer, tries to pry that information out from him, but it doesn't work. And Eddie actually ends up losing his job and his fiance, which again, not a spoiler. And if you've read the comics, you would know that she is his ex or whatever. But and it kind of made me kind of feel a little bit for him, because that is kind of a little personal to me, as I have mentioned before that I have been let go of my job before, so I kind of felt a little bit for Eddie in that regard. Other than that, I think the relationship, like I said, between Venom and Eddie was portrayed very well by Tom Hardy, so I really like that. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the Venom symbiote himself. The CGI in this movie is really good. I think that it looks believable. It doesn't look like a cartoon or a 3D animated movie or anything. It looks like this thing lives and breathes in our world. And I love the way that the symbiote without the host, I love the way that it moves. It kind of like, it kind of has an adhesive kind of a footing onto it. Like if it was on this table, it would be kind of like almost attaching itself to the table, and as it moves, it would detach itself and then attach it again. It just looked really cool. If we're comparing it to how the symbiote moved in the Spider-Man 3, I say that they did a much better job here, and they definitely made it feel more natural and a lot more tangible in our world. Kudos to the CGI people for this movie. So I wish I could get into some plot details, but the thing is, that would lead to spoiler territory. I want to keep this review spoiler free, and of course there will be a spoiler review later on. Tom Hardy basically has taken this movie and taken the brunt of this movie on his shoulders, and I have to say kudos to him for that. Riz Ahmed's performance as Carlton Drake was also really, really good. And sticking with the topic of Eddie Brock and Venom, I like the fact that both these characters are very quippy. Eddie is actually not like a super serious guy who just wants to punch you in the face. He's actually a pretty chill dude, and I like that about him. It's pretty cool. Even Venom is actually not like a super serious, dark and brooding kind of a character. It's actually actually has a bit of a personality. It actually connects with Eddie, which I guess kind of comes from the host. Since the symbiote does take attributes from its host and imbibes it into its own personality, that makes sense. And I feel that was really, really cool how they had them do that. And I would say that I even liked some of the references in this movie. They had a lot of references to Alien and Predator. There was even a bit of a Rambo reference in there too. And it was not like a dialogue or anything. It was just some of the action in the movie. Anytime you reference an 80s movie, you're good in my book. I could go into other things and all that stuff, but again, I would be going into spoiler territory. So I do want to talk about some of the flaws I had with this movie. This movie is somewhat contained as far as the script is concerned, but at the same time, Tom Hardy has signed on for 3 more films. Or 3 more films, or just 3 films in general, I'm not really sure. But either way, he's signed on for more films. They've kind of made it a point in a way. There's kind of this whole underlying attitude to set up for a franchise. I could kind of really sense that. That kind of didn't gel with me really well. I was like, okay, can we focus on this movie, please? Because throughout the entire movie, there was a talk about other symbiotes out there. There's like a bunch of us out there. There's a lot of symbiotes out there. Like, everyone in this whole movie kind of throws that out, that there are other life forms like Venom and Riot out there. So that kind of killed it for me just a little bit, just because I don't really want to know about all the other symbiotes right now. Let's just focus on Venom. The movie is called Venom, not Riot or Scream or Carnage or any of that stuff, right? It's about Venom, so let's talk about Venom. Going into the action sequences, some of them were good. Others definitely felt very rushed and very choppy. I'll even say the Riot and Venom fight is actually, in my opinion, ended way too quickly. I felt that the editing was just super choppy in it. I felt the pacing was really off. And I think that, the director was just going, oh, wait, hey, we got to wrap this up real quick because we need to go and film 2 or 3 more movies. The way that Venom and Riot fight, it was really cool. I'm not going to lie. I just wish there was more. That this fight scene isn't that long, but it is supposed to be like the final fight of the movie. And if you're going to have this as your final fight, I would expect it to be a little bit longer than it was. In the movie Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the best part about that movie was Batman and Superman's fight. It was very short, but it was still good. I feel that this movie kind of suffers from that as well, that it's just not enough. I wanted to see a little bit more fighting before it ended. It was like a hit, blink and you miss type of a fight scene for me. It wasn't very well paced. So speaking of which, the pacing in this movie, like I just alluded to, was very much all over the place. When it first started out, when the movie first opens, it's actually not so bad. The pacing is pretty decent. But then after Venom enters Eddie Brock, they just, boom, just take off into hyperspace or something. Because I was like, whoa, slow down. I didn't even have time to breathe in this whole movie. And I think I kind of understand that they were trying to keep us engaged. But the thing is, you need to understand when to have the story move fast and when to have the movie slow down a little bit. When you need to give certain scenes, you need to give it time to breathe. That kind of disappointed me just a little bit. But either way, one more thing I have to say: the dialogue in this movie, it's super cheesy. The dialogue in this movie is just really, really cheesy, and some of the reaction dialogues also. They're kind of just there just for the sake of it. Like there's a part where one character, she's like, oh, they're called symbiotes, and Eddie's like, symbiotes? Well, because the scene is with Eddie and one of the employees. She's just explaining the whole concept of symbiote. It's even there in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler in my opinion. In that scene, she's explaining to him and to Eddie that, oh, there's this thing called symbiotes, and he says symbiotes. I didn't like that at all. I mean, it felt like very lazy scripting. I honestly would have been totally fine if Brock just said nothing. He could have just been quiet and just listened to her. You know, I get it that they're trying to kind of break the monotony, but you don't need to always have him react to everything, you know, in a verbal sense. You can just have him listen. That's all you have to do! Drake getting Riot's symbiote, it was kind of odd for me. It was kind of weird. There was even a bit where Carlton Drake and Eddie Brock have a round of fisticuffs, and that was not really needed either. So yeah, I mean, so there are some things with the movie that I did have some problem with. But the thing is, I'm not bashing the movie. I still thought it was good. I still had a lot of fun. It's just that I guess because it was Venom, I expected a little bit more, maybe because of the hype and whatnot. So I really wish that there was a bit more for me in this movie. So overall, I would say that Venom is a good, enjoyable movie. It's not anything substantial, nothing to write home about, as I usually say. But I think for what it was enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. And I think, you know, because it is PG-13, you can take your kids with it. And I feel that's maybe could be one of the reasons why the movie had a lot more potential, but it wasn't allowed to reach its full potential because of the PG-13 rating. I think it was rated R. I think it would have been a much more different movie. Like I said, for what it was a lot of fun. As far as the rating goes, I am giving Venom my middle of the road rating. I actually am going to change it up a little bit. So originally my middle ground rating would have been a thumbs up and a thumbs down, but I'm going to kind of change that up a little bit, and I'm just going to say that it was the bar, right? Like Sheamus and Cesaro do, the bar, like that. So this is what I give Venom, the bar. So that pretty much concludes my review of Venom. Let me know what you guys thought about this movie if you've seen it in the comment section below. Also, be sure not to include spoilers in the comments because I will be, like I said, doing a spoiler-filled discussion with a special guest, and be on the lookout for that very soon. But as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on social media, and tell your friends about the Nerdy Mark. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support. This is Sid, signing off. Have a nice life.